The Tampa Bay Buccaneers look to bounce back on Monday Night Football, try and absolve some of their primetime woes. The Bucs have yet to win a primetime game in the Baker Mayfield era. We're going to break this game down and then some with our good friend Mr. Bucs Nation on today's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast.
I want to hear cannons. Outfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up with the head to the side. It's 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome back, Bucs fans, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host for today's episode, James Hill, a.k.a. Mr. Bucs Nation, right here on YouTube. James, how you doing, my friend?
Feeling good after the week 1 win for the Bucs, man. I mean, my gosh, it's always a great feeling to beat a division rival, but obviously the past couple of years, beating the Falcons specifically just has felt so much better, right? Because they've just been, Falcons fans have been on one lately. I'll just say that they've really been buying into their own hype. So the fact that the Bucs have been able to get a win against them has been fantastic.
Yeah, not only that, you mentioned the week 1 win, but now the head start they have over the rest of the NFC South. The Falcons lose that week 1 game. The Saints drop a game to the Cardinals, and of course the Panthers lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Bucs are sitting pretty right now. But with that being said, the Buccaneers also have a primetime game on Monday Night Football. And in the Todd Bowles era, he has a habit of starting 2-0 as Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach. They have a pretty good habit of playing well early in the season, at least finding ways to win early on in the season. But where they really struggle, my friend, and where a lot of the storylines for this week are going to creep in, is on primetime. Believe it or not, as I mentioned in the open there, the Buccaneers have not won a primetime game in the Baker Mayfield era, which just doesn't seem like a real statistic.
No, I mean, it's surprising, right? Especially given how well the teams performed the past couple of years under Baker Mayfield. But that's something they still need to prove, is that they can win in primetime. So, I mean, unless you do count like playoff games as primetime, they did win against the Eagles. So, but you're right. In terms of regular season primetime stuff, they haven't been able to win.
And the Houston Texans, the last time these two teams met was all the way back in 2023, C.J. Stroud's rookie season. And Mike Evans actually spoke to the media this week and kind of expressed how much that loss pissed him off. He was very upset in the locker room. He said he's normally pretty level-headed, but that one really got under his skin. And I don't blame him. I think a lot of people are still thinking about what C.J. Stroud was able to do to the Buccaneers defense in the final few moments of that game a couple of years ago. Bucs going to be looking for revenge. And honestly, I think when we look at this matchup here, James, a lot of the concerns we had with the Buccaneers in week 1 are going to be on full display. I think on both sides of the football, there are some question marks still, and those are going to play a huge factor into how successful the Bucs can be on Monday night.
Yeah, whenever you take a look back at the Bucs' first game that they had against the Atlanta Falcons, there was obviously some concerns there, especially in terms of the running game. That was something that was pretty darn concerning, all things considered. The Buccaneers, did not have a great day running the football. They only, like in terms of Baker Mayfield being able to go out there and run the football, that went well. But aside from that, like Bucky Irving had 14 carries for 37 yards. That's just not good enough, right? So they do need to get him going. On paper, right, whenever you see the rushing stats, it's like, what do you mean? They rushed 23 times for 101 yards. Well, it's important to note that a lot of that was Baker Mayfield going out there. So I agree. They do need to improve on this and do need to have more consistency in the running game against Houston.
Yeah, so again, another one of the storylines that's going to get brought up here is that primetime record. The Bucs were 0-5 on primetime last year. Overall, they are 1-7 on primetime in the Baker Mayfield era. That one win against the Eagles that you had brought up in the postseason. with that being said, I feel like something has to give here because Todd Bowles, as head coach of the Bucs, is a perfect 7-0 so far across weeks 1 and 2. So
who would have thought, by the way, right?
I know. With the seasons that we've had and a lot of the discussions that we have had around Todd Bowles, if there's one thing we can all agree on is that the Buccaneers typically start those first 2 weeks and look like a media darling. I mean, they have more hype this year than I think they've arguably ever had with Todd Bowles as head coach. People are still talking about the Buccaneers as Super Bowl contenders, which I don't always love because, the more people pay attention, the more chances there are for things to go wrong, and sometimes that's what can happen on a national stage. But I'm curious to see how this ultimately plays out. James, I want to ask you a little bit more about the run game, specifically when we look at where the Buccaneers' run game is coming into this, but not only that, where the offensive line is coming into this game. Luke Gedeke has not been at practice all week, and on top of that, reports are the Buccaneers still going to be working out with their makeshift offensive line. Now, it did hold up somewhat well in week 1, but when we highlight that run game, I think that's where some of the inefficiencies of this, I don't want to say ragtag crew because you do have starters, but there was a mix-up on the offensive line, and I still think that Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, everybody on this offense, including offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard, it's still a process that they have to work through. So when you look at this matchup with Houston, and really you look at how the Bucs run game has to get going, what are you seeing here?
Well, so firstly, for people who might not know what fully me and Rhett are talking about, so last week, the full expectation was that Charlie Heck was going to start at left tackle, right? I thought that, Rhett thought that, literally everybody thought that, right? Yeah. However, the Bucs surprised a lot of people when they deployed an offensive line of not Charlie Heck at left tackle. Instead, it was Graham Barton at left tackle. Now, he had played left tackle in college and then made that transition to center in the NFL, but he moved back to left tackle, was okay, I think, all things considered. At left guard, you actually had an elevation from the practice squad in Michael Jordan start at left guard. And again, he did fine, all things considered. At center, which I thought, Rhett, was honestly the biggest surprise, was Ben Bredesen at center.
One of the highest graded Buccaneers from last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I was like, wow. And I tell you what, just from the eyeball test too, he freaking blocked his tail off, man. Yeah. Like he really went out there and gave it a good run. And then Cody Mock and Luke Gedeke stayed at right guard and right tackle. Now with those changes, you heard Todd Bowles say after the game, like, yeah, it was originally going to be a lineup that was break glass in case of emergency if Charlie Heck went down, but we started to like it the more we started to do it. And Bowles said he had to be the bad guy because, let's be honest, Rhett, that's kind of embarrassing for Charlie Heck. I mean, that's a bad look, right? So, and to be the bad guy of like, yeah, we know that we were prepping you to be the starting left tackle, but, a week or two before the season, we're going to be like, sorry, bro, you're out of luck. We're going to start our freaking center at left tackle over you.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we have talked about as well. I think to go through a full preseason, a full training camp, to be the LT1, if you will, until Tristan Wirfs returns, the Buccaneers made a decision. Todd Bowles made a decision to basically get a little bit better at left tackle and maybe open yourself up to some more opportunities at center and left guard. Now, Michael Jordan, jury's still out. A lot of these younger players, I think consistency is key. So as long as Michael Jordan is getting reps for the Bucs, we'll have to see how that shakes out. But Ben Bredesen was fine.
Dude, I thought he was good.
Yeah.
I mean, he was doing great.
Graham Barton was fine, had a couple of questionable reps. Really, to be completely honest with you, I thought a lot of the offensive line pressure, the breakdowns from last week came from the right side of the offensive line. I don't think Luke Gedeke had his strongest performance, and then we come to find out he hasn't been at practice because of a foot injury, so right. Maybe that factored into it. But now the Buccaneers head into this game with a big question mark over Luke Gedeke and still, some shuffling on the offensive line.
Yeah, so imagine this. So imagine being told like, hey, man, we'd rather move 3 offensive linemen to different positions than have you start at left tackle for Charlie Heck, and then get told, hey, you might have to start at right tackle in week 2. I mean, Jesus, right? Like, what a freaking shift. Obviously, in the case of Gedeke, if he does not play, which that, again, dude, being out your top 2 offensive linemen who are now making $20+ million per year, Rhett, is a humongous blow to the offensive line. Charlie Heck would be that first guy up. Behind him, you'd probably have Benjamin Chukwuma, who is a little bit of playing left tackle and right tackle. I think on the Bucs depth chart, is actually listed as the backup right tackle, but I do believe that Heck would get that first nod. So it's just even more shifting along the offensive line, dude. It's just insane. And you're looking at a Houston Texans pass rush where, again, you're having 4 out of your 5 offensive linemen playing spots that they don't usually start in, and you're going up against a pass rush who last week had 3 sacks against the Texans, or against the LA Rams, excuse me. Will Anderson is going to be on that defense. You have got Danielle Hunter, who is an absolute beast, who's going to be out there, as well as some strong rotational guys like Derek Barnett. Sheldon Rankins is going to be in there. Henry Tuo'oto is going to be out there. Folorunso Fatukasi is going to be out there. He had a sack last week. So, like, this is a very strong defense for the Houston Texans. They held the Rams to just 296 total yards last week.
Yeah.
The Rams had 72 rushing yards on 25 carries. So this is a Houston defense that is certainly solid, right? And now you're looking at a scenario where it's like, hey, by the way, 4 out of our 5 offensive linemen are starting, and they're not usually either A, starting in those roles, or B, just not starting there, period. Yeah. So it's concerning.
And it's a Texans defense that also desperately wants to avoid starting 0-2. That's another thing you mentioned. They did a good job handling LA last week, but they also lost that game 14-9. It was a real barn burner, as you can tell, an offensive explosion. But the fact of the matter is, this defense is going to be hungry. They're going to be pinning their ears back, not only trying to get after Baker Mayfield, but trying to shut down this Buccaneers potential run game. And that is where this offensive line just has to step up this week. Again, last week, they were okay in pass protection. I think Baker was a little nervous early on, so we saw him use his legs, and it's good that he has that ability, but you don't want to rely on that, right? I don't think it's ever a good day in the office when your quarterback is your leading rusher, and he's not named Lamar Jackson, right?
He's a freaking maniac, though.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just going to lower my throwing shoulder into a middle linebacker that's like 6'2", 250. Yeah. I don't care. He's a maniac, dude.
No, he's a barbarian. I mean, every guy in the locker room is going to run through a brick wall for Baker Mayfield, and I would have it no other way. But with that being said, I would like to see Bucky Irving be a little more effective this week. A lot of people like to bring up when we talk about the run game, gap versus zone scheme runs, right? Here's an interesting stat from Josh Capo. Buccaneers weeks 1 through 4 last year ran 53% zone runs, 47% gap. Weeks 5 through 19, they ran 57% gap runs, 43% zone runs. In week 1, the Buccaneers ran 82% gap run plays. With that being said, I didn't see very many gaps for Bucky Irving to run through, and that is solely, I believe, on that offensive line. Those guys just need to get a better push up front. And to be honest, when you compare this Atlanta Falcons defensive line to Houston, that could be a tough ask this week.
Mm-hmm. Whenever we're talking about gap runs and zone runs, by the way, for people, so I just to make sure that my understanding of this is correct as well, is whenever you're doing gap runs, is that more so like, hey, running in between the tackles, running in between the guards in the center, things along those lines?
Yeah,
we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. There is a set gap for you to go through versus zone, where it's just like, hey, your O-linemen have to take care of all these guys in this zone, and hopefully they do that in this general area.
And that's runs to the outside. Right. So just to make sure that everybody has that understanding. So the Bucs were running in between the tackles a lot last week. Whereas we saw last year, again, a much bigger change. And I'm curious why Josh Grizzard did that. Is that because he had faith in the offensive line? Was it because he was worried about the edge rushers and the defensive backs, or the edge rushers, the safeties, and the linebackers of the Falcons? I'm not sure. But it is a very notable stat.
Maybe I don't want to say it's a lack of faith in the offensive line, but at that point, when you look at the numbers and you look at what worked, especially with Bucky Irving as your running back, you looked at what worked last year, maybe you just want to feed it a little bit more, especially when you're already shorthanded with, the personnel you have on the line. You don't have a Tristan Wirfs.
I'm saying it's the opposite. Like, if you're doing gap runs, that means you trust your offensive line to open up the gaps,
Right.
right? Like,
Well,
and just kind of win their battle types of stuff. But for zone, it's more so like off the offensive line are moving type of thing, right?
yeah.
So maybe it was just a, hey, I don't trust, like let's not overload this makeshift offensive line with a ton of different assignments, such as like, hey, pull the guard and stuff like that. Maybe
Right.
that was it.
Well, and
Who
that's
knows?
also, I mean, going back to even some of his play designs, people have talked about this with route concepts and how he's drawing up these wide receivers. Like, if you don't have a full lineup, you're gonna be limited in some aspects. At the top of the season, Josh Grizzard said that Jalen McMillan was probably the most important player to step up in the offense this year, and now we know the Bucs are now without Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan. So, you have these guys who are finding their footing with a new offensive coordinator. You've also got a new OC who is calling plays for the first time. I think it's going to take 5, 6, 7 weeks for him to really reach into his bag and start to get creative here. But you are on prime time playing an NFL defense in Houston. You got to win football games. So you can't just be too simple. You got to find some creativity in here. And I think we'll get that from Josh Grizzard. A little bit of what we saw in week 1. We saw some stuff carry over. We did see early on in that game the pony package, which was very successful for the Bucs out of the pistol last year, keeping both running backs on the field and Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. Curious to see who gets involved early as well, because let's not forget last week in that first quarter, we saw carries from Bucky Irving, we saw carries from Sean Tucker and Rachaad White in that order. Sean Tucker got hands on the football second. So I'm curious to see how those guys get involved, but based off of week 1, Grizzard made an effort to get all 3 of them carries. They didn't do much with them, but, I mean, we'll see how it shakes out. But taking a look at this Buccaneers offense, I wanted to talk about Baker Mayfield as well and how this offensive line can hopefully keep him away from Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter here along the defensive line. Both of those guys were just sack machines last season. So for Baker, taking a look at what we got last week, it was kind of a rusty performance. He ultimately came around, made some great throws down the stretch, and led the Buccaneers on that game-winning drive. But heading into this contest here, what do you want to see from the QB1?
He had some really great throws last week.
Yeah.
Right. Those 2 throws to Emeka Egbuka were wild. Right. Like, I thought that was great. But there was also a couple of throws where, he had a miscommunication with Cade Otton, where Cade was going inside, or he thought Cade was going inside, but then he kind of ran like a route like this, where it's like going in for a second and then cutting out, right? So that and the missed throw to Sterling Shepard are 2 things where it's just like, those are 2 throws he definitely wishes he probably could have had back. Just a smidge more. In terms of hitting on a couple more throws, right? I'm not saying we need to see an entire change in how he's playing. I thought he played like fine overall last week, all things considered. He just missed a couple of throws, right? If he hadn't missed a couple of those bigger throws, it would have been a very great day for Baker Mayfield. There were also a couple of passes that he threw where were, like almost intercepted.
Yeah.
Things like that as well.
Could have been a bad day.
2 of them. Yeah, two of them were just phenomenal diving plays by AJ Terrell, right? He threw one, I think it was Xavier Watts, where that one just hit him right in the chest, basically, and he couldn't bring it in. So it's just cleaning up stuff like that, right? I might have jumped the gun a little bit there, where it's like he had a fantastic, would have had a fantastic day. So just cleaning up those small things, but it's not like, again, overhaul changes. I thought his pocket awareness was great last week, in terms of moving around the pocket, running when he needs to, and things along those lines. Just a little bit better on not even just so much decision making, but a little bit decision making, but also just kind of having a little bit better chemistry with some of his targets.
And I think on top of that, continuing to get some of these guys comfortable out there, shaking off that week 1 rust, if you will. Some of the guys that didn't play a ton throughout the preseason. These are going to be the reps that matter. A guy in that wide receiver room who I'm going to be watching this week, and this is aside from Emeka Egbuka, who's a huge obvious, right? Mike Evans is obvious. I thought Sterling Shepard had a really strong week 1 performance. I know that, Emeka leading the team, the big 2 touchdowns, like that's going to kind of overshadow what Sterling Shepard did last week. But I think what was more impressive than any of his catches was the one big pass deflection that he had. And that's not what I want to see.
Saved it.
That's not what I want to see. I don't want to see more pass breakups for Sterling Shepard this week. That's not what I'm getting at. But I would like to see him just continue to be a serviceable target for Baker Mayfield. Because, again, he's without Jalen McMillan. He's without Chris Godwin. I know that he is building chemistry very quickly with Emeka Egbuka. But I think Sterling Shepard is almost like the X factor in that pass game. Right? Mike Evans is going to command a lot of double-team attention. Curious how they try to address Emeka Egbuka after what he put on film last week. And then we'll see if Cade Otton is even an option. I don't even think he got a target last week. So, I'd like to see. One. Okay, he had one.
It was that, if you remember the route, he was running straight.
And Baker overthrew him.
Baker thought he was... Well, Baker thought he was cutting inside, and it was like one of those, I don't even know what kind of route you call it, but he's running straight, does this, and then cuts out, So he ran one of those. Baker thought he was going inside, and then he threw it inside, and it was just Cade went outside.
Yeah, and it would have been a touchdown if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's dude. And you could tell Baker was pissed about it. He was like, "Yeah, that's on me."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah."
So gonna look for him to honestly start hot, and it doesn't even have to be as explosive of a start as the Bucs may have been looking for in Week 1, because that first drive of the game, like, they came out and guys were trying to get deep. They were sending everybody. They were trying to make something happen early on to set the tone and have some positive momentum, and I can completely understand that. But I think you can also set a positive tone by just hitting 2, 3, 4 quick checkdowns, right? If you get 2, 3, 4 quick checkdowns and then 2, 3 Bucky Irving runs take you into field goal range, that's a great opening drive. That's a win every day of the week in my book.
Dude, who would have thought, by the way, like, I'm just looking at his career, who would have thought that Sterling Shepard would just be a guy in the current era of the Bucs where it's like, yeah, we like this guy. Just reliable dude,
Hey, spent many years with the Giants as a reliable guy. I think, listen, the fact that he is over 30 years old and still finding ways to be productive, you love to see it. And on top of that, the connection with Baker Mayfield, there's a lot of pros outweighing the cons here.
Me and you are both the same type of guy too, where it's just like, oh yeah, like third wide receiver who's like a 31-year-old vet. We love that. Yeah. We love that here. Yeah.
He needs more love.
Get you like 2 or 3 solid plays a game. You're like, dude, hell yeah. Like, I love that.
Yeah. I think I think he was very underrated last week, and his performance just got overshadowed by the other guys in the wide receiver room, and that's okay. That's what happens when you're the wide receiver 3 sometimes. He is at that stage in his career where I'm sure he has no problem allowing the young guy to go out there and shine, especially calling his game winner, too. That story about Emeka Egbuka is still...
Dude, insane.
Final thoughts here, though, on this Buccaneers offense. We talked about a hot start for Baker Mayfield. We talked a lot about this offensive line and what they need to do to keep things rolling. Josh Grizzard, is there any other notes that you have for this Buccaneers offense versus Houston before we take a look at the other side?
Just looking for better execution, I think. Is my friend Josh said it last week, where he was like, man, like, whenever I looked at Atlanta versus the Bucs were the more talented team, just in terms of like pure roster talent, but Atlanta felt like they were playing better. But the Bucs just had so much more talent that it felt like we just overpowered them by sheer talent, right? Yeah. So that's what I want to see from the offense is more efficiency and just less of a clunky feeling. And I don't necessarily know if it is the play calling. It felt like more of the execution, Rhett. Yeah. So I just want to see this offense execute better this week.
And it's a common theme that I've seen thrown around. I've also said it myself, but like ring rust. Just a lot of the guys that didn't get valuable playing time in the preseason. Now, there are starters who did get a little bit of action, but it wasn't a lot. And I do think that regardless of what you do and how long you do it, if you stop doing it for 9 months and then try to go full speed again without that much warming up, you're going to feel the effects of it, and you're going to see it happen. So I continue to look forward to these guys getting in football shape here, executing better week in and week out, cleaning up some of the penalties. There wasn't anything too egregious on the offensive side of the ball last week, but man, a couple of roughing the passer penalties will really piss you off on the defensive side of the ball.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah. I mean, we can dive into it. We're talking about the defense because I mean, there's a lot to think about here as well for the defense of the Bucs versus the Texans.
So I want to talk about this Buccaneers pass rush, and of course they are always a topic, but they have to put pressure on C.J. Stroud with just 4 down linemen. I think it was a good start last week in Atlanta. I think a lot of the guys that we were going to be evaluating, Yaya Diaby, Hassan Reddick, both of those guys had strong games off of the edge. Unfortunately, Yaya had that one sack wiped away from the face mask by Jamal Dean. It is what it is. But overall, I thought he looked pretty good. Hassan Reddick looks really good in all of his one-on-one matchups. He's making the right pass rush moves. He's fiery, man, and you can see it.
Dude.
Like he looks like a next-level edge rusher, and I'm excited to hopefully see him get home again this week. But with this 4-man pass rush, James, we can bring up Vita Vea. Vita Vea made plenty of plays last week. I need Kalijah Kancey to show up this week. I have been pounding my chest all offseason, all year, talking about, man, Kalijah Kancey's a dog. We had that quote a couple months ago, how he wants to lead not just the team, he wants to lead the NFL in sacks. And
Not off to a great start.
He had a couple of good reps against double teams week 1, but outside of that, I thought he was largely quiet, and that's not what we're used to from Big 94. So really, this pass rush, I think, starts with him and his performance this week.
Well, you look too, he was one of the lower graded Bucs on PFF this past week. So I felt like we just didn't see we didn't see enough good moments from Kalijah last week. I agree with you. We did see good moments from other guys. Vita Vea, good Lord. I mean, he's just a maniac. Yaya had some good moments. Hassan had some good moments. But we didn't really see enough from the other guys, I thought. Kalijah is in there. Logan Hall is in there. Even some of the backups, Braswell, Anthony Nelson, Greg Gaines, we just didn't see enough from the entire unit as a whole, right? And I feel like that needs to improve. And look, just to dive into the Texans offense a little bit, this is a Houston Texans offensive line that let up 3 sacks last week against the Rams. The Texans offense was a huge issue for them last week. I mean, they had 265 yards of total offense. They had 2 turnovers last week. They had 18 first downs. They only scored, 9 points last week. They didn't score a touchdown. They've not scored a touchdown yet this season. So that is where the Buccaneers that's probably the biggest weakness of the Texans right now. You traded Laramie Tunsil in the offseason for the Texans. I still have no clue as to why they did that, but they decided to do that.
Now, not to cut you off, I'm sorry. I will say, just to throw it out there on behalf of Houston, Laramie Tunsil hasn't looked awesome this year. He certainly looks a little more vulnerable than I think many people were used to, especially last night against the Packers.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, so you're still trying to figure things out in terms of the Houston Texans offensive line, right? So I'm going to be very curious to see, the Buccaneers try and take advantage of this. I agree with you. I thought Hassan looked awesome last week. Like, I thought that he was the most consistent. Geez, right? Was he the most consistent defensive guy out there last week?
Led the team in pressures. He had 7 pressures, and then again the sack that we had talked about. I would say that as far as consistently winning his one-on-ones, he looked like the most professional guy on that defensive line.
And you're looking at the offensive line of the Texans last week. Their top 2 guys on that offensive line had a grade of 66.3, which was Robinson. And then at right guard, it was a 66.5. So their right tackle, Ursary, had a 41.6 PFF grade last week. So they're vulnerable on that offensive line. They really are. So I'm going to be very curious to see what the Buccaneers can do to try and take advantage of that, because this could be another defensive slugfest if things break down, so to speak.
And you mentioned it there, they are vulnerable on the offensive line. I think this is another week, just like Atlanta, the Buccaneers defense can really take advantage of some of the injuries here. Houston is a bit shorthanded. They're missing starting center Jake Andrews, and then they may be missing Cade Stover as well, who's an above average blocking tight end in the NFL. So, I think on top of that, when you look at some of these guys in the interior, we just talked about Kalijah Kancey. I think Kalijah Kancey has what it takes to win a lot of these matchups with a backup center for Houston, right? So I have a lot of faith in them, but they need to make this happen against C.J. Stroud, because at the end of the day, I think that is how Houston is going to find success, scoring and trying to move the football on Tampa Bay. I don't I don't necessarily fear Nick Chubb. And I think a lot of that comes from, I don't want to say a return to form for the run defense because it's only 1 week. And that's another thing, too, is we're only 1 week into the NFL season, so we don't want to overreact. But the Buccaneers' run defense was the best part of the defense last week. They held Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson to pedestrian days. And I think pedestrian is being kind of generous in a term. Those guys didn't do much of anything for Atlanta last week, aside from the big Bijan touchdown at the very beginning of the game.
Running wise, they didn't do anything.
Yeah, the run game didn't do anything. I look for that success to continue. So if you can find a way to consistently put pressure on C.J. Stroud, I like this matchup here for Tampa and their defensive line if they can get pressure with 4.
Well, I tell you one thing I am worried about though, Rhett, is we need to see better play from Servassier Dennis.
Yeah.
Because and look, in the first half, those 2 plays against Bijan in the passing game, brutal, right? One of them, he was left on an island. I kind of did a film breakdown of that play. The other one it was a bad play. He just missed his assignment, in my opinion. But then in the second half, you saw him start to make some plays in run defense, right? And he played better. I don't know if that was just like a nerves thing. He actually got benched after that second Bijan Robinson play, if you remember. Deion Jones finished up that drive, and then Servassier came back out and overall played better. So the Bucs need Servassier to be better this upcoming week so that you aren't in that type of scenario where it's like, hey, Nick Chubb can go out there and do some crazy stuff or whatever, gaps the Texans can find in this Buccaneers defense are exploited there. So you just need to see some better play from some guys in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing on this Buccaneers defense that I need to see, I need to see more hands on the football. But not just that, I think we need a takeaway this week. I don't love that we are going up against 2, I don't want to say wounded offenses, but I don't know. I don't want to speak too soon because C.J. Stroud has certainly carved us up in the past, so let me not speak too soon. But I think the Buccaneers can take advantage of a lot of things this week. A wounded Houston offensive line being kind of the top priority there, but for this defense, man, just take the ball away. If you can hit C.J. Stroud, get him to toss up a duck, come down with it. How many dropped interceptions did we see in Atlanta, James, last week between Jamal Dean, Zion McCollum, all of the guys in the secondary who got their hands on the football? That's been a huge talking point for Todd Bowles, and that's a huge, mission for this team in 2025 is to get hands on the football, to come away with takeaways. Last week, the Bucs got hands on the football. Nobody took it away, and I think that's got to change this week.
Well, it was at least 2 because you had the Zion McCollum one. The other one was taken away by a penalty, to be fair.
Yeah.
And then you had Jamal Dean drop one, which, by the way, I know you guys talked about it, but still crazy that he freaking took a gigantic pay cut and was like almost cut by the Bucs. That's wild.
And he's totally fine with it. I love the quote. The quote is probably the most Jamal Dean thing I've ever read. He's like, I'm not in the mood to go to a new city and learn a new system. I had to do all that my rookie year, and I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, I'm just like, dude, what? Like, you literally just admitted, like, yeah, they were gonna cut me. So I was like, I don't care. I don't care about money anymore. Like, oh my gosh.
Just a sidebar here on Jamal Dean, because we didn't really get your take on it. Evan and I talked a lot on the midweek show. We had Michael Pless from Real Bucs Talk on. That's a great episode. Make sure you guys go check that out. But what are your thoughts on Jamal Dean? Like, with all of this being said, he seems to be handling it fine. The Buccaneers certainly seem to know what they want out of the deal. They already drafted their 2 corners in the draft this year, so maybe they already feel like his replacement is in the room. But is a reunion at this point still a possibility in 2026? Like, I would be surprised, even after everything that's said.
I'd be surprised. I mean,
Right.
Look, he's taking it great, I mean, is the best way to put it. I mean, dude, it's just insane. Like, for him to just be so open and be like, yeah, I didn't want to go learn a new system, so I'm just going to take $8 million of a pay cut. That's insane.
Yeah.
But there's no way he's coming back. They were going to cut him, and then he took that pay cut. Like, that's just the fact of the matter. So, which is kind of crazy to me too, because it's like, how did you, like, you were ready to cut this guy, but now he's still a starting cornerback for you, which is wild to me. It says a lot. It says how much faith they have in Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish. Obviously with those guys with injuries and whatnot, like I was still a little bit shaky on the Bucs depth going into
Yeah.
week one. They had like only 4 healthy cornerbacks. I was like, oh, I don't know about this, but thankfully Benjamin Morrison's going to be playing this week. Um, but I mean, yeah, dude, it's a crazy situation where it's like, this is a guy where they literally gave him an ultimatum of like, take this $8 million pay cut, my guy, or we're going to cut you. And they're like, okay, I'm going to take an $8 million pay cut. And then the Bucs are like, all right, yeah, you're still a starter. It's like,
Yeah.
what? Like, what, how did we get here? I don't think he's going to be traded at the deadline. That would be so scummy by the Bucs.
At this point,
so
yeah.
scummy. But he's going to finish out this year. Let me ask you this, Rhett. When Benjamin Morrison's healthy, how much is he going to dip into Dean's snaps at corner?
I think this is a very different conversation if Morrison had started the year healthy. A big thing that I think a lot of people had, even like NFL scouts, when you talk about where he went in the draft, a lot of people hold Benjamin Morrison's injury history against him. And to be honest with you, in the NFL, especially at this stage of the game, the best ability is availability, and he just hasn't been available. So first things first, I just want to see if he can stay on the field, right? But
Right.
with that being said, I do think it is a valid question because when you start to bring in the talk about the upside that Benjamin Morrison has, I mean, people are arguably higher on Benjamin Morrison than they are Jacob Parrish just because Morrison is kind of a guy who could eventually, year 2, year 3, he could be a starting outside corner for this Buccaneers defense. And I think the Buccaneers hope that things play out that way, right? I think they would have liked if he was healthy and ready to go week 1 against Atlanta. But the fact that he is ready to go week 2, I'm curious to see how many snaps he has. But I'm also very curious to see just how effective he can be and how they plan to use him in that defense. I think outside corner, if he gets in there, and again, just like these other guys, if he's getting hands on the football, it could be an interesting talking point to follow throughout the season. But I think the Bucs are crossing their fingers and really, really hoping that Benjamin Morrison is able to come through and work out this year, especially now with Jamal Dean off of the books for 2026.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And I don't think Dean's coming back. I mean, why would you want to if you're Dean at that point, Like, I know he said, like, I didn't want to learn a new system and stuff like that. It's like, brother, you might not have a choice now going forward. Like, you might not have a choice now going forward. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, that obviously, like, the fact that he is so open about that may leave the door open for the Bucs to be like, hey, bro, take this like $5 million per year contract or something. But like if Dean goes out there and some teams like, we'll give you $16 million per year, he's going to go take that money.
Well, and that's the thing too, and Evan had brought this up. When you look at the corner market and who's going to be available as a free agent, Jamal Dean might be a top 2 or 3 name on that list. Truthfully and honestly, I know Bucs fans are going to have a lot of opinions about him. We have said before on the show that there are worse guys than Jamal Dean to be your, potential cornerback 2 on your team.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think that he's going to have a market. And, I don't know what kind of precedent that sets. I don't know what it does for player confidence to get a long-term extension in Tampa Bay, win a Super Bowl championship, and then by year 7, you're the 3rd corner on the roster? Like, I don't know. I don't see that scenario playing out where he sticks around in Tampa in 2026. I don't think you do either. No. But it's definitely weird to see it play out this way. I think we're used to a little bit more resentment on the part of the player that the Buccaneers are moving on from.
Yeah, dude, it's just so weird. He's like, yeah, I don't care about money. I just didn't want to learn a new system. I'm like, bro, I care about $8 million. What? How good are you at saving money that you're just like, I don't care about $8 million?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Man, oh man. Before we wrap up with special teams, because unfortunately we do have to wrap up with special teams. We have to talk about it. You can't not after week 1.
For sure.
But really on the defensive side of the ball, I think the big key is putting pressure on C.J. Stroud. He was sacked 3 times last week against Houston. And their offense, again, put up 9 points. Their defense bailed them out consistently. But if you are consistently putting pressure on C.J. Stroud, it's eventually going to go your way. And I think the Buccaneers finally have enough firepower on defensive line. If Yaya Diaby has another impressive performance this week, that's good development, right? That's a guy that people have been waiting to develop for the last couple of seasons. He hasn't done it, but week 1, he showed a very promising start. Expecting Hassan Reddick to carry that same pace. And then again, those big guys in the middle opening up some opportunities for other people or potentially getting there themselves. I think Elijah Cansey might have a quarterback sack this week. Is that asking for too much? Maybe, but we will just have to wait and see. Your final thoughts on this Buccaneers defense headed into this one?
I mean, I agree with you where it's like get pressure with 4 because we saw it every time the Bucs blitzed Atlanta. I feel like it didn't work ever against Atlanta.
And I thought they sent more guys. It feels like, if I'm not mistaken,
they would send like 6.
Yeah, it feels like Todd Bowles' average is 5 players on his blitz, and this year he was definitely sending the house.
Yeah, and it just it leaves the back half of your defense super exposed. And they were countering it all the time in Atlanta. Just quick throw, just I'm gonna quick throw to Bijan or whoever, right? So that's the blueprint of how to beat the Bucs blitz. And just it didn't work last week. So it's like I agree with you. It's like dude, it's been a story we've been talking about for like 2 years now.
Yeah,
it's like stop having to rely on the blitz. I know Todd Bowles is saying it too, but just anybody come out here and break out as a non-blitzing pass rusher, please. Golly.
Maybe this is the year, man. Maybe this is the year. Maybe Hassan Reddick is finally the guy who can do it. And then once we have a secure pass rusher, he'll sign a big mega deal somewhere else, and then we'll be back to square one. So, are we still under the impression that Reddick is going to be a 1-year rental? Like it. I know we're 1 week into the season. This is a loaded question.
It depends on who else is going to be out there and how good everybody else is doing. Right?
I think that McCollum and Gedeke already being signed at this point really, really potentially helps his chances.
Yeah, I feel like if Yaya still isn't there yet, where it's like he could be your number 1, and Braswell hasn't done much of anything either, then that definitely raises. And like Reddick is a dog. Like yeah, that's gonna raise his chances, right? That's the only way. Like if Yaya ends up looking like a true number 1 by the end of this year, you're probably not going to keep Reddick. Probably not. But if he plays well and it's a scenario where it's like, hey, we actually still really freaking need him, I could see it. I could see it.
I think it's going to be a high priority for Tampa to lock down an edge rusher, whether it is a Hassan Reddick or it's somebody else that they end up targeting. Unless Yaya Diaby develops a lot this season, I don't know if he's going to develop enough to where we're comfortable with him being the number 1 guy. So we'll have to see how it shakes out. We have an entire season ahead of us, but I like to have these conversations now because before you know it, it's going to be like week 12. And,
right.
The playoff picture is going to be coming together. You really start to see who the powerhouses are in the NFC and the AFC. And then free agency inevitably becomes a part of the conversation depending on how those guys' seasons are going. So all going to be things to monitor moving forward. But, James, are you ready for the meat and potatoes here? This is I can't believe this is closing the show. But we have to talk about Chase McLaughlin. We have to talk about Money Mac.
We know the Bucs also had a special teams player of the week last week.
They did. And Cameron Johnson, the first bona fide returner this team has seemingly had in a little while. Not only did he win NFC Special Teams Player of the Week, but James, this is a crazy-ass stat. Cameron Johnson had the longest punt return for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers since Bobby Rainey in 2015. It has been 10 years since we have seen someone break a 50-plus yard punt return, and Cameron Johnson did it.
It's crazy, too, because I'm like the number 1 Cameron Johnson hater.
Really?
I just am. Yeah, I am. It's like 2 years in a row now where I'm like, why is this guy on the team?
Do you not remember? So before the injury last season, he was the guy at camp.
I know.
We call it we call it the Kenny Bell effect, but like that is the closest we have really come to it in a very long time. Also because of, he's a wide receiver, so.
Yeah, and then this year he made it over like Garrett Green, and I was like, why? Like I'm a big Garrett Green guy. And then he has this return and gets special teams player of the week, and everybody was dogging me. They're like, "You hate this guy." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I do. I'm not going to deny it."
And you're a guy who loves every player. Seriously,
like,
I don't think I've ever heard you come on this show and say, I don't like that guy.
You know why it is exactly what you just said. Everybody was like, "This guy, oh my gosh, so good in training camp." And I was like, "I don't see it. I've been at these training camp practices and I don't see it. I'm not seeing what everybody's talking about. Like, what am I missing here?"
Man,
And then he didn't and then he didn't do anything like in the preseason or the regular season. I was like, I thought this guy was like the next coming of Jerry Rice. What happened? you know? And then this year it was the same thing. And it was like, "Hey, yo, Cameron Johnson's a stud." I was like, I'm at all of these training camp practices. I don't see it.
I thought, truthfully, and maybe I wasn't at as many practices as you were. Maybe I'm reading in a different depth of the internet. But I thought that once the Bucs drafted Tez Johnson, all the excitement on Cameron Johnson went away. People completely forgot who he was. Like the bottom 3 wide receivers in that room, if they weren't Tez Johnson, people didn't care.
Yeah, and now, dude, it's crazy because now you're not hearing anything about Tez, like, at all. And Cameron Johnson just won special. So I was like, of course he wins special teams player of the week, dude. I was like, of course he does. I was like, this is insane. Of course he rips off the longest return in Bucs history in the past decade. I was like, now everybody's going to clown me. Like, yo, you hate this guy. I'm like, dude, okay.
I just want to see him consistently do it. The Bucs have not had a returner. I mean, who was the last decent punt returner we had? Like Adam Humphries? Deshaun Jackson, the 3 times they let him do it.
Sammy Stroughter.
Sammy Stroughter, Michael Spurlock. You can go back a ways. And there's a couple of names that stick out, but I don't know. We'll see if Cameron Johnson can become a consistent piece.
Jadon Mickens. He was fine.
Mickens, he was fine. He was okay. He was okay.
Yeah,
That's
was
a name. That's a name.
Yeah. Jadon Mickens, he was fine.
Yeah, I thought so. But I remember Bobo Wilson too for a little while. People were hyped up and wanted Bobo Wilson to be our returner. That didn't end up working out.
Bobo Wilson was Cameron Johnson before Cameron Johnson.
While we are dropping names here, I just want to throw this out to you because me and Evan talked about it to close the show a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's so funny because if you really want to find out how long someone has been watching the Bucs, and this is a really good litmus test because this guy, James, it was the last week of the season, 2019, against the Falcons. John Franklin III.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quarterback turned running back turned wide receiver. He was going to be our gadget guy.
Yeah, he got in trouble the COVID thing.
He was one of the fake vaccine card guys.
He was the third guy, yeah.
Yeah. What a legacy. I just remember the level of hype surrounding him after that season was over. Like we were upset about the Jameis thing, but we were so pumped up about John Franklin because of what he could potentially do in this offense. We were like, "Oh my God, this is our Taysom Hill," and then he tore his ACL and missed the entire 2020 season.
Got booted out, got banned basically for the fake COVID card. Him and Antonio Brown.
That was
insane.
That was a straw that broke the camel's back. I think Mike Edwards too was
Mike Edwards was the other guy. It was Edwards, Brown, and because I remember I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, it's Antonio Brown and Mike Edwards. That really sucks. Why the hell is John Franklin Myers in this?
I was like,
or John Franklin III. Yeah.
I was like, I didn't even think he was on the team still.
Yeah.
All right. Let's wrap it up here with some special teams, and we'll keep this short and sweet. I think everybody knows what we're going to say. Chase McLaughlin has got to make his kicks this week, man. I mean, Younghoe Koo is not even attempting a game-tying field goal last week if he makes either his field goal or his PAT. Just a out-of-character miscues last week from McLaughlin. Looking to see him bounce back this week.
Yeah. Dude, so, like, okay. I have a few thoughts on this. Yeah, no, like, I'm not worried yet about McLaughlin at all. Dude, it was so weird to me. And where, like, they kept on showing him on the bench, just, like, straight chilling, like, arm back like this.
Yeah.
Did you see that on the broadcast?
Yeah.
Like, he looked, like, so nonchalant. And, like, part of me was like, bro, at least stand up and like get hype with the boys.
At least look engaged.
Yeah, but like also part of me was like, yeah, whatever. Like, he's a freaking kicker, man. Like, I don't know. What if he even goes to try and hype up everybody else, we're probably gonna be like, what are you talking about? Like, who would get away from us? I was like, I don't know. I guess he's fine. But no, like, I'm not worried about McLaughlin. Are you?
As soon as I'm not worried is when he starts doing stuff like he does in week 1. So I'm not worried for now. And very much like you and very much like Evan, I do feel like he can turn it around. He is a guy who has been consistently good enough that I can still believe in him. I just want to not look like a fool for believing in him at the end of the season, because I thought we have come so far just to feel this uncertainty in my stomach again whenever we line up for a field goal.
It's like the old PTSD coming back. Did
Yeah.
you also know, by the way, I looked it up. This is the first time ever that McLaughlin missed 2 kicks in his career at the Bucs.
I believe
Ever.
it. I believe it.
Like-
That's why it was such a shocker that,
Yeah.
because, you miss a 44-yarder, it's okay.
That's not great, but whatever.
It's
You
not
miss an extra
ideal.
point.
But yeah,
Yeah.
missing an extra point, and it was loud. It was boom right off of the crossbar, so the entire arena knew that he
Well-
missed it.
Well, and the fact that Bowles too was like, yeah, I was pissed about that, to say the least. I was like,
Yeah.
dude. And you're right. If he would have made that extra point, bro, they would have never. Chase McLaughlin should be happier than anybody that game didn't go into overtime. He probably is happier than anybody, like that game didn't go into OT.
And I mean, look at the state of kickers across the NFL. I know Jake Moody just got a job. I think he signed with the Bears today, but he missed a couple of kicks in week 1, and the Niners cut him without even a second thought. They brought in Eddie Pinheiro.
Yeah.
The Falcons, Younghoe Koo missed that kick. They worked out.
Signed a guy to the practice squad.
They signed a guy to the practice squad, and they worked out like 20 other kickers. I
didn't know they worked out 20 kickers. That's crazy.
They worked out more than 10 before they decided to sign someone. So there is
Are you
legitimate.
serious?
Yes, I am
That's
dead serious.
insane.
I am as serious as a heart attack.
Imagine being. By the way, it is notable that the Bucs have done none of those things. Like if they would have brought, remember that kicker they had on? Well, I'm saying that's a good thing. Like that they believe in Chase McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember that kicker they had during preseason, Ryan Coe?
Mm-hmm.
If they would have brought him like in for a workout or like said like, hey, we're signing him to the practice squad, I'd be like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But like the fact that they haven't done any of that, I mean, the Falcons sound like they're down bad. Holy crap, dude! Working out 10 kickers. That is wild. I'm looking that up right now. I want to see who they worked out.
Yeah, I don't know if that is floating out in the ether, but I did hear from good sources that yes, they worked out.
Yeah, it
a lot
says
of
Falcons
kickers.
will try out new kickers. Let's see. So
I wonder
we'll
if it
be
does have the
working-
names.
So let's see. I can't find it.
The suspense is killing me.
I know. They brought in a German kicker, Lenny Craig, to compete with Koo during training camp. Let's see. All I see is that Raheem Morris said they were working out kickers, but hold on one second. Eddie Pinheiro, they signed Eddie Pinheiro. Yep.
It's
Or
Ed
no,
in
sorry.
chat,
Eddie Pinheiro signed with the Niners. Apologies.
and it's Ed in chat said Pinheiro apparently chose the 49ers over the Falcons because he wanted to be on a winning team. I don't know that to be true. I haven't seen that report, but I would not be shocked to believe it.
Here it is. Zane Gonzalez, Michael Badley, and Ben Salas, and then also Parker Romo, who they signed to the practice squad.
I am 100% positive they worked out more than just those guys.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Listen, man, it's a I mean, when you're Atlanta, it's a kicker's league apparently, because Younghoe Koo is a guy who for so long makes those kicks. I can't tell you the PTSD of him lining up for a game-tying field goal to send it into overtime with Tampa Bay. He doesn't miss those kicks against Tampa. He might miss them every now and again, but the fact that he's missing them against Tampa, I think, is certainly cause for concern for not only the fan base but the coaching staff up there as well. Final thoughts on Chase McLaughlin and really overall this Bucs special teams unit as we wrap things up, and throw your score prediction in there too.
I'm not worried about it. Chase McLaughlin, I'm really not. And then so I do want to say this in the season predictions I made, I had the Bucks losing this game. Um, so I'm gonna change my mind though. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I'll have the Bucks winning.
Okay.
The Texans looked worse than I thought they were going to, Rhett, offensively. So I have the Bucks winning this game. I'll say 24-14. Why not?
Okay. I don't think it's a very high scoring game either. And just like you said, I think the Texans last week, they kind of surprised me at how much they floundered with CJ Stroud under pressure. So that's the X factor here. If you can apply pressure on CJ Stroud, ideally without the blitz, we know that Todd Bowles is one of those guys who's going to kind of live and die by it. But I would like to see Hassan Reddick get home. I'd like to see Kalijah Kancey get home. Hell, I'd like to see Yaya Diaby get home and have it count for once. So I want to see a sack. I want to see pressure on the quarterback. And I think that is going to be the biggest key to just keeping Houston out of this game. I don't think they're going to be able to move the football consistently with Nick Chubb, unless they're throwing him screens out of the backfield. So we will have to wait and see. But
We're real quick. We have more information. The Falcons worked out 13 players, but six of them were kickers. Okay, so Maddox Trujillo is a kicker. Michael Badley was a kicker. Former Bucs punter Jack Browning worked out for Atlanta. Zane Gonzalez, Ryan Heichter, I believe is his name. John Parker Romo, who they signed. And then Zach Triner worked out for the Falcons. Remember Zach Triner?
What is he doing? Working out as a long snapper?
Yeah.
And here is really quick, good on It's Ed for following up earlier. He found the clip of Eddie Pinheiro in the 49ers locker room. And it's a clip courtesy of KNBR. It says, quote,
Okay.
I want to win games. I want to be a part of a good culture. I'm in my 8th year of my career, and I want to win. New 49ers kicker Eddie Pinheiro had a choice between going to Atlanta or coming to the Niners. But once he got the call from San Francisco, he knew he wanted to play there. So, yeah, Atlanta's rough start to the season. Again, it's only 1 week. It's only 1 week, and the Bucs have been 0-1 before. So the world isn't necessarily ending. But if we're just forecasting vibes, I don't think the vibes are very high in ATL right now.
No, I mean, when you're working out 6 kickers, a punter, a long snapper, that's rough, baby. That's rough.
I'm afraid to admit it, but I also picked the Bucs to lose this game on the season predictions show. I'll change my mind. I think the Bucs can win this game. I truthfully think the Bucs can win this game if they can successfully apply pressure on CJ Stroud. I think Houston, I think DeMarco Ryans, I think they have reached a point where a lot of teams in the NFL know how to move the ball on Todd Bowles in this defense. CJ Stroud is no stranger to moving the football on this Buccaneers defense. I think if they can't apply pressure, he's just going to pick them apart.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the X factor for me. Apply pressure, and the Bucs could win a low-scoring game. I'm going to go 21-10. I know it does seem a little bit lopsided. 11 points is a lot. Feels like a lot.
2-score game.
Feels like a lot. Feels like a lot for primetime, especially a Bucs team that has consistently struggled on primetime. But I am willing to ignore all of that and just look at how the Buccaneers match up with Houston. And I do think that, much like you said, they are the better team. So thank you, Ed, for tagging me in that clip, by the way. I appreciate it, man. But with that being said, my friend, I think that's just about going to do it for today's game preview episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I want to thank everybody in our live chat for hanging out with us. Our good buddy, Bat W. We always appreciate hearing from you. H. Norman, It's Ed, Bucks Rays Bolt, Shoot Zambu, Wayne, and anybody else that I may have missed. MK, Mikey Kelly, and, of course, Zach Jarvis. Zach Jarvis with an early question. We did not address this. We should have. He said, sorry, just tuned in. Do you think Godwin or Wirfs will play this week? No, I don't. I
will say it's so positive that Wirfs is already limited in practice. Same with Godwin. So positive.
But
Love
can we talk about Todd Bowles and how much he loves to lie?
Yeah, why did he say that?
What?
They might play this week. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
It's every year. He'll say something that's just like everybody's like, What? And it's
Where
just
did that
all
just
a bunch
come
of,
from?
Yeah, it's just all a bunch of crap. Like, I think he just
Well,
likes messing with people.
My immediate thought, I was like, is this like a strategy?
Right.
Is he
Yeah.
trying to throw off the Texans and be like, yeah, we could have Tristan Wirfs? I don't know. Maybe.
Hey, Tristan Wirfs might play, but we might also get just Charlie Heck at right tackle and no Luke Gedeke. So you got to keep them guessing, right? You got to.
Who knows? Godwin might play. It's just like, what are you talking about, bro? Like,
Yeah.
everybody said they aren't going to be ready till like week 5, basically.
I am excited for them to get back into the lineup, and I know a lot of people are going to be excited. A lot of people don't want them to rush them back, but it was funny because like when I saw that quote, that was my immediate reaction. It was like, why are you lying? Why?
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
Why,
Yeah, I
why
thought
are
the
you
same thing.
lying?
I was like, why did he say that?
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about, dude?
I'm not sure, but thank you guys for hanging out with us, all of the Cannon Fire crew over on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more great Buccaneers content. You can find James right here on YouTube at Mr. Bucks Nation. You can also follow him on social media at Mr. Bucks Nation. Where else can the people find you and your great Buccaneer content, my friend? You're a busy man.
Bleacher Report. I'm on the Bleacher Report app every week, Monday to Thursday, as well as on Sundays or whatever after the Bucs game.
Yeah.
So I'm on Bleacher Report. I also do the NFC South Roundtable on Tuesday nights. That's a lot of fun. Oh my gosh, dude, it was a great time. Just with the Falcons. Beautiful. It was a beautiful time. So that's a lot of stuff that I got going on, man. So yeah, it's happy to stay busy.
Heck yeah. Find our show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram and Twitter at Retticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. And let me be true to my word here. I just got to make sure that I follow Ed. Going to go ahead and follow him back. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate you very much for your support. And thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for linking me that soundbite of Eddie Pinheiro, because that's really funny stuff. Anytime that we can point and laugh at Atlanta, I greatly enjoy it.
It's a good day.
It's a really good day. Thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you Sunday, right after the Buccaneers game. We will be live here, youtube.com/Cannon Fire Podcast. Going to be taking your calls as the hotline will be open, breaking down week 2. Monday night, actually. I think I said Sunday. Monday night football. It's going to be a late one, but should be a great time, as always. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, James Hill. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.